What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to the third Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show of the weekend. AEW All Out 2022 just ended a few minutes ago, so we are going to run it down, tell you who won all the matches, and all our thoughts on everything that happened. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, Callum Wiggins.
Hello there.
This is, how many hours of wrestling this weekend? This is came out to. This was what 5 hours of this, and then 3+ hours of the other one. But I don't know. Whatever the math is, it's finally over with that. I still have more work I have to do after that, but I'm going to agree with Adam in the live chat here. I'm spent. How about you, Callum?
Yeah, I'm pretty tired, but that's only to be expected. But yeah. I just want to get this over with and sleep, really.
Well, I see we got Dane, we got Chris, we got Marco. What's up, guys? Leave your comments below, or leave your comments in the live chat if you are live for this. Anybody else that is in that range, of course, if you want to make sure we notice that, take advantage of the super chats. If you're talking about this afterward, and you still want to toss a little spare change our way, we'll just get that out of the way while we're talking about it. There's this marketplace stuff. You got the thanks button. That's out there on YouTube. You got the Patreon. You got the join button for the members only content just by subscribing to the membership on the channel. You've got the Darkcast and the Pick or Poison tier. You got even $1 a month goes a long way in helping us out, just keeping the morale up and everything too. Redbubble and TeePublic are where you can get your merchandise. And of course, if you are just subscribed to this channel and you hit that like button, then that helps out a lot too, including just listening to this in the first place. Glad to have you here. So All Out has 50 matches or something on this card. We got to break down some of these in a very quick fashion, just because, like we're saying, this is a lot. We're kind of tired, and we think that you guys probably don't want a 2.5 hour long review of this to go along with it, but we'll try to break it down as quickly but as efficiently as we possibly can. Starting off with the 0 hour, which was immediately into the Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello against Ruby Soho and Ortiz match for the AAA World Mixed Tag Team Championship. And I'll say this about this match and the 3 other ones that happened on here. The fact that I was still doing work for Worlds Collide hindered this for me, because I was editing that pay-per-view post show and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for dinner, and I was trying to write some stuff up and whatever, and I couldn't pay full attention to the first 3 of these matches. But honestly, I don't think I missed anything. The main thing I have written down here to talk about for the Guevara Mello mixed tag match was just the very, very end, which it seems like Ruby Soho has a broken nose, possibly.
Well, you're saying that from the very, very end. She broke her nose, I think. Well, yeah, with the Ty KO hitting her, that broke her nose. I think the other thing that really caught my attention is that she was dropped on her neck early in the match as well, when they had that Sammy Guevara had Ruby lifted up onto him and Ty hit a pump kick, and she just drops pretty much on her neck.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, that wasn't great either. And yeah, she seemingly has broken her nose as a result of this. So yeah, she can't really. Well, I say she can't catch a break. She got a break in this on this show.
Different type of break.
Not the one that she would have wanted. Yeah, it was. They got it started pretty quickly. You brought back the old golf cart running Sammy Guevara over, so that's something. And yeah, it was pretty good. I say nothing super special. Had Anna Jay get involved to cost Ruby the match, and yeah, it was just kind of there overall.
And this is, I had said before, I don't know why they're not just doing the Kingston match, and now I feel like that's going to be put on the back burner. So kind of like, this is going to be something I say a few times here. I feel like this was a stall, and I kind of don't want to wait to get back around to something that was there before. So I'm not feeling that in the grand scheme. I don't think that we needed another Ortiz and Ruby against Ty and Sammy match. So this, among others, I'm feeling kind of, I didn't know if I needed that to happen tonight. I don't.
I mean, I wouldn't refer to it as a stall. I think Sammy and Eddie is off the table completely now.
You think they're just totally done with it?
Yeah.
Not even gonna try?
Yeah, essentially, Eddie Kingston punched him. Well, at least attempted to, if not connected with a punch to him behind the scenes. I don't think they're going to work together going forward. Not in the short term, anyway.
Tony Khan's like, if you guys don't stop, I'm going to turn this whole card around. And then I kind of like the idea that Sammy Guevara's arch enemy in AEW is a golf cart. It's the recurring theme over a few years now. That's one thing. But that turned into the Hook FTW Championship match against Angelo Parker, which went on a little bit longer than I expected it to, but it ended up just being Hook retaining, which he should, because he should be the last champion. Matt Menard comes out to attack him after the match, and then Action Bronson, that's the guy's name?
Yep.
Comes out to help Hook. I have no idea who this is.
He's the guy that sings Hook's theme tune.
Okay. I don't know. That was one of those things that was just like, hey, is this a wrestler that I'm not aware of? Am I supposed to be marking out here? Or, yeah, but whatever. Sure. He did the thing. What do you think?
Yeah, it was just what you wanted to see in terms of getting Hook on the card, and it was just a straightforward title defense. They gave him a bit more action than has been in certain other matches, but that's fine. Hook needs to be a bit more, needs to learn how to sell and get involved in more like less than one-sided matches. So yeah, just give Angelo Parker a bit of offense here, and yeah, it's a nice little moment for the guy that sings Hook's theme tune. Like, he's good friends with both Taz and Hook, so yeah, it was just again just something to have it on the kickoff show, which I don't think is like completely unmerited, but it's something that will live long in the memory.
What was the third match? That was Pac against Kip Sabian for the All Atlantic title. This one, I feel like I probably missed some spots that would have been really good, because I still was kind of only watching this through my peripheral. It seemed like it was pretty decent, but probably not necessarily something that I would have to go back and double check. But maybe you have anything more insight on that. Do you think that this was something that would be worth, if you missed it, to go back and watch?
No.
No?
No, it was just
a match.
Yeah, just a match. Like as much of like just a match you can get with Pac, and Pac matches typically are at a higher end of a scale. Like, his average is higher than most people's average for me. So this was kind of as close to average as it kind of gets, really. And Kip Sabian didn't really pose much of a threat, or as much as you would want to point to. I think that his return kind of underwhelmed a little bit. So yeah, and like I say, good match, just nothing special. Doesn't really give me any motivation to see Kip's character and progression beyond this point. So kind of all of that build up for the months of him standing outside or standing in the audience with the box on his head pretty much amounted to nothing. So that's all just a big swing and a miss. The thing that got the most excitement and intention for me, well, two things. One, Pac seemed to be actually working heel in this match. Actually, it seemed like Kip Sabian was almost the guy that was working babyface almost. So I think they might be heading down in that direction. And then at the end of the match, he had a stare down with Orange Cassidy.
Which he basically said, "You're not a wrestler. You were a joke. Get to the back of the line."
Yeah, he basically said that he's not going to fight him for the All Atlantic Championship, which does again. And they had another like backstage confrontation afterwards when they announced that it's going to be Best Friends versus Death Triangle on Dynamite. So I think there is part of Pac that just wants to avoid another confrontation or another match with Orange Cassidy, even though they've only had one match and Pac won the one-on-one match they had previously. So yeah, I guess they're just at least carrying on the narrative that if they're not turning Pac heel, that he doesn't have anything but disdain for Orange Cassidy.
I mean, Kip Sabian after the match was yelling at the cardboard box, because clearly it was that cardboard box's fault that he lost.
Yeah, maybe this is the new head.
Then we went to Kingston and Ishii, and they chopped each other for a bunch, and I'm sure you enjoyed it more than I did. It seemed like a thing that people would gush over that I have nothing really to say about.
Yeah, it's a fantastic match, and you don't understand wrestling. Just basically is the overarching narrative of this, as we will discuss in other segments on this show, I'm pretty sure as well. But yeah, this was one of the best matches of the entire weekend. I think it was better than pretty much any match on Clash of the Castle outside of Sheamus and Gunther.
Sometimes we definitely see eye to eye, and sometimes there's that disconnect where I'm just like, all right, a guy fought a guy with no story, and they chopped each other, and I'm supposed to go nuts, and I'm not.
I appreciate the actual just work of wrestling more than it needs to have a story. And the story itself, I think stories are told in the match themselves, and they don't always need to have a huge story surrounding it. The whole thing was it was Kingston's opportunity he knows how Ishii is, and Ishii is somebody who just withstands so much pain, and so Kingston decided to just test himself and essentially let Ishii give as much punishment as he was giving out and try and just essentially withstand him as much as beat him, and he gets a victory. And that's good because likelihood is that he should be heading towards some kind of big match at Grand Slam because he's from the area, so they should try and build him up for a decent match where he gets a big moment in his hometown. But yeah, I love this match.
I'll go back to this for a couple matches here. I feel like you had a full hour's worth of these 4 matches with no like actual pre-show content. And as much as I like the idea of a pre-show potentially having a match just to kind of whet the audience's appetite, I feel like if you've got the pre-show is literally just all matches the same way, it's not a pre-show. Then it's just the 5th hour. And for having 5 hours of the show, I feel like there's more than enough evidence on Twitter about this too. Lots of people at a certain point in this just were like, all right, I'm burned out. I don't have the energy for this anymore. And I feel like if you would have cut out these 4 matches, I think that the overall card would have been bumped up a little bit. I don't think any of these needed to be on here, especially because it's just, there's not a whole lot of story to some of them, actually to pretty much any of them at this point. But we talked about that on the prediction side. I just, I don't feel like I got anything out of what I saw from this that warranted the downsides that are going to come back to later on. So keep that in mind for anybody that's listening.
Yeah, and keep this in mind. I completely disagree with what Toni said.
Fair enough. The casino ladder match started things off, and there were some good spots here and there. Another kind of problem with ladder matches, and this isn't just like an AEW thing. This is WWE or literally any company at this point. Plenty of those, I'm going to set up the ladder and then not do anything with it until the next thing happens and not climb the ladder, which doesn't make any sense, but you're just going to set up the ladder in 3 different spots for later on. That's always been a criticism of mine about ladder matches, and we had a couple spots that looked okay. Some of them, honestly, despite the fact that they are big spots, if you haven't seen it before, I had seen before, so it didn't wow me as much. Like, sure, it's impressive to have like a power bomb on top of a ladder, but I've seen it better. So I'm not going to be like, oh my God, the thing that I've seen before. The Claudio thing, I didn't quite understand. He's got the ladders hooked together and Andrade's on it, so he just sort of wobbles him but then kind of pushes him off. I don't know what they were really going for there.
No, I don't know, but I think it was a case of they tried a lot of stuff and it got a bit too contrived in places, and that what was most evidence of that is when they had Dante Martin come in, and then they've got this giant like basic sea of ladders in the ring, and Dante's trying to do some stuff and he can't get around all of the ladders and it's getting in the way, so he has to like think on his feet a little bit and reinterpret some stuff. So yeah, so there were some really, really cool ladder spots and some really good actions, big dives, some high risk stuff. The like Canadian Destroyer on the ladder onto Andrade, the big dive through the table by Phoenix onto Roosh, and all of that stuff. Like it was very, very action packed, but it was also very sloppy and over the top and just too many bodies and too many ladders at times. So that kind of took away from it a bit.
And by the time we get to right before the Joker is supposed to come out, we get a bunch of masked people entering the ring, and they decide to take out Claudio and Dante and Wheeler. And then somebody climbs up. They take the chip off, take the mask off, and it's Stokely Hathaway. And the other masked guys are Ethan Page, Colton and Austin Gunn, W. Morrissey, Lee Moriarty. The Joker comes out, and it's somebody in a mask. And he just gets handed the chip, teases that he's going to take the mask off, but decides not to and leaves. And, of course, the chatter comes around. People are wondering who the Joker is, and we'll tell you who that was a little bit later on. We're not going to spoil it here, even though most people were like, oh, it must be insert name. Without spoiling who it is, though, what did you think about this whole Joker thing?
It was a unique way of ending the match. And I can understand people having some sort of negativity towards it, because essentially you've had all 7 of these guys just do batshit crazy stuff and then just have loads of people come out, essentially invade the match and I would say ruin it, but like, you know, they basically just took advantage of the situation and cleared everything out and handed the chip to this mystery man. But yeah, I had been saying earlier that they might have done something involved around this with the Stokely Hathaway group. Like, Stokely Hathaway clearly had something cooking up his sleeve, and you have all the people that he's been associated with now, the Gun Club, W. Morrissey, Lee Moriarty, Ethan Page. They're all now a unit, and they're all under his direction. So yeah, and we'll talk about seemingly the guy that is now in possession of that chip and that opportunity for the World Championship later on. But yeah, I think it's an opportunity to progress a story, and I think that was actually quite a lot of this show was story progression beyond just the matches themselves.
In some ways, I think for the right decision, and in some ways, I think not. But the next match was the World Trios Championship match, with the Elite coming out on top after, you know, a good back and forth match, but it ends with the mix-up of Hangman Adam Page inadvertently hitting a buckshot lariat on John Silver, and Omega is able to pin Silver to get the win with that, which I thought this was good, and I like the ending to it.
This was excellent. This was such a fantastic trios match. To cap off a fantastic tournament in general, most of the matches throughout the tournament were really, really, really good. And this one was just another one in that collection. I think John Silver was great, as he always is when he's given an opportunity like this to shine. You literally can't find a single Bucks match that's happened on pay-per-view which isn't like one of the best matches on the card and one of the best matches that AEW puts on all year. Like, they really step it up for these matches. And they told a really good story with every time that Omega and Page got in the ring with each other, the crowd went absolutely crazy. That just shows the intensity of the feud and the longevity of it and how much people remember and care about this stuff, which is great to see. And yeah, they just built up a really nice match overall. Just some really good spots, some really good interplay between both teams, getting involved with each other. They told a story early on about how Page was a bit reluctant to go full guns blazing on his opponents because he's seemingly reconciled with the Bucks and doesn't really want to hurt Omega that much. But then he just got into it when they fired him up. And yeah, you had Page thinking that he was going to get the victory with the buckshot, missing him, hitting John Silver, being held hostage then by Matt Jackson as Kenny Omega just snuck into the pin. So essentially Page won the match for the Elite. So I'm sure that will play into a story moving forward as well. But yeah, this was excellent, and the right team claimed the first trio championships. And already these titles feel important because that's the tournament and this match in particular.
What do you think about the idea that Omega said try to beat that to the camera afterward?
It's a nice little challenge. I mean, he knows that he's going. Well, essentially, it wasn't the opener, but it was pretty much like the next thing alongside it for the main card. So I think he knows that he lives up to the moniker of the best bout machine for a reason. So if he's going to be starting off the show, he's just basically saying to everyone else, yeah, now it's your turn to step up and see if you can match and exceed that. And very few matches could touch this one, I think.
The next one certainly couldn't. Jade Cargill retaining over Athena. It was kept short, as Jade Cargill's matches typically are. And I've got really nothing to say about it outside of the entrances, to be honest. There were two notes that I wrote down, actually. One was about Athena's like retractable metal wings with the lights on them and the skulls and the LED string and everything. I was just like, my God, how much stuff is she going to carry to the ring? And Cargill doing a She-Hulk inspired intro with like her ring gear and busting through the bricks and all. One I liked, the other one I didn't. I didn't really like Athena's, I should say. Specify between those two. I will write down Cargill's entrances, not the entrance itself, but the ring gear as being like probably one of my more favorite ones with the whole She-Hulk thing. But the match itself, the only note that I wrote down was how late Kiera Hogan and Layla Gray were in breaking up the pinfall. That one. They almost missed the opportunity to pull Cargill's leg, and if the referee wouldn't have stalled, probably would have been a 3 count. But it ended up being...
They did miss the opportunity. Cargill had to kick out of the O-face.
It was just like, you guys know you're supposed to pull this, right? Like you missed your shot, you know?
Yeah, they fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had one major spot in the entire match and they missed their cue. So meant that essentially Athena's finishing move, which no one had kicked out of yet since she's joined AEW, had to be kicked out of. It's very much the whole Sid having to kick out of the atomic leg drop at WrestleMania 8 type moment. Obviously not to that extent and not going to have that derailing an effect, but it was, they wanted to start off quickly, basically giving an impression that Athena was going to catch Cargill cold and try and win just straight away. And they spent a lot of the rest of the match trying to set Athena up to hit it one more time. Jade was reversing it a couple of times into trying to get into Jaded. Eventually, Kiera Hogan does cause a little bit more of a distraction. Jade hits a pump kick on Athena coming out of the sky and then hits Jaded, gets the victory. Yeah, it was kept short, but I think they did well beyond the timing issues with right at the start of the match. I think they did well enough with the time they had available to them. You don't want to overexpose or overdo it with Jade. She is very much a 4 or 5 minute wrestler. So you play to that strength and they do that. And yeah, so it ends up being probably better than if it was a 10-minute match instead.
I mean, they certainly wouldn't have had the 10 minutes to tell since a lot of matches got cut short, but this one was one that didn't need to be long. And unfortunately, what comes out of this is, even though it makes more sense for Cargill to retain, Athena at this point, if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't really necessarily have an investment in her going forward. Kind of feels like the Ruby thing, where she came in, she was kind of a big deal for being like, oh, now I can really tap into what I'm supposed to be doing because WWE didn't treat me well. She loses. Okay. You know, I'm not really feeling a big push for Athena coming out of this, are you?
Not necessarily straight away. All these things come in cycles. She'll probably just go on the back burner for a little while and then maybe be brought back to feud over another title or be put into another storyline in a couple of months' time. Like, that's just the way most things have to operate. She's had her opportunity at this title. She lost it. She'll now go back into like a dark elevation cycle for a little while until they decide that they've got another opportunity for her to do something.
I got Brian Cage vibes going on, where I don't think it's going to balance out, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We had a backstage thing with Alex Marvez talking to CM Punk, or as he referred to him, CM, I got a question for you. Which, of course, after this sentimental, Jon Moxley's fighting everybody from Chicago, the person who serves coffee and the teacher of the year and all that, which I I think is a little bit cheesy. Then they come back and they're like, he called him CM, and just completely undercut. Well, that was kind of funny. We'll talk about more about that, how that played out later on, because we had a trios match between FTR and Wardlow against Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns, which had one of my most feel-good moments of the night for me, which was the end of the whole thing afterward. But the power bombs and everything, it's 4 power bombs, if I remember correctly, that Jay Lethal takes. Wardlow scores the win, despite the fact that Satnam Singh had hit him with his cash register hands, according to Taz. Like a little moment where he's like, he's got the hands the size of cash registers, whoever uses cash registers anymore. And then after the match, Samoa Joe comes out. He ends up getting busted open somehow. Did you catch how that happened?
No, yeah, I didn't say that. The only thing that I guess could have potentially done it is just when he like ran into Satnam Singh, just maybe just an accidental collision or something.
But then Dax Harwood's daughter Finley comes out. She breaks Sanjay Dutt's pencil in like a feat of strength. And when they lay out Sanjay Dutt, she puts a foot on him. Referee counts for a 3 count. And she scores a pinfall over Sanjay Dutt. It's not going to be on the records or anything for anybody who's like, oh my God, whatever. But I thought that was actually my favorite part of that whole segment. That was pretty cute.
Yeah, that was just a big, nice, feel-good moment for everybody. That they had Sanjay come out with the fight like an 8-year-old girl shirt, and he'd written over it, and like was just like essentially just being a very shitty heel as he's typically been recently. And then they actually had Finley come out with FTR and Wardlow in the entrance wearing the t-shirt, and then they had that nice little spot at the end. I did see a nice a funny Twitter post where they said she's the 3rd kid to win a match in AEW, following the kid that was dressed as Orange Cassidy.
Oh, that's right. And -1.
Oh no, it must be 4 then, because the other one they said was Jonathan Gresham.
Oh man.
But I mean, the match itself was good. It was nice to see like the embers of a hopefully future match between FTR and the Moxley Machine Guns in this, and you have Wardlow finish off Jay Lethal once and for all. I think this pretty much draws the line under any potential for Jay Lethal to get another shot at the TNT championships. Title. Yeah, I think it's just going to be Wardlow moving forward, hopefully to an extended period of defending it most weeks against just whoever he wants to destroy next.
Dan in the chat says over under 3.5 months until we see Samoa Joe on TV next.
I presume, again, you can't say for certain because we don't know how these things work, but we know that he's been filming for a project in particular. So if they're finished with that now, then he can come back more on a full-time schedule, then that would be great. But I don't think the product's like missing him entirely. Like, I don't think it's going to be the end of the world if he's only appearing like once every 2 to 3 weeks moving forward.
So this was, again, a match that I had said I think I would have preferred Motor City Machine Guns against FTR and to just do that. If we're talking just like a match for the sake of a match and enjoying that. I thought it was good, but then again, could have been better. Did like it a lot more than the next match. I could say that. Ricky Starks against Powerhouse Hobbs, which was like, 2 minutes long or something?
It was about like 4 or 5 minutes, I think.
I literally had just been starting to be like, all right, the match is kind of getting started, and then poof, it's over.
Yeah, so at least my perception is that the story they're telling is the fact that Ricky's not 100%. His neck is bothering him, and I think that's just a storyline thing. They wouldn't have let him go out there if his neck was bothering him that badly. But he's essentially had to go through the factory, and that's done more damage to him. Hobbs is just too big, too powerful, too athletic and too strong. So as soon as he was able to get an opportunity to just wear down Ricky and start doing some damage to the neck and all of those areas, then Ricky was pretty much on a hiding to nothing. And they gave him a few like hope spots and fighting back, but it just shut. I think they're just telling the story that Ricky's not with it right at the moment. So Hobbs, being as strong and effective a guy as he is, was able to essentially prey on his weaknesses and get the victory quickly. My ideal way that this continues is that in a couple of months' time, you have Hobbs win the TNT Championship, and then you have Ricky essentially build himself back up, eventually just regain strength to eventually beat Hobbs for the title. But that could be quite long term. So it depends how they want to go with it. But I think I understood in the moment why they went the direction they did, but it meant that the match itself was underwhelming from what a lot of people were hoping it was going to be.
I wish that this was the only example of why was that so short. It wasn't as good as I was hoping, and I'm disappointed. I wish. But I had a more egregious problem with that later on, I would say. This was one of those downers for me on the night. Not that Hobbs won. I wanted Hobbs to win. It made more sense to me. But that match just ultimately was kind of blah in my mind. Thankfully, they followed it up with, I would say, my favorite match of the night. The AEW World Tag Team Championship match. It was the Acclaimed and Swerve in Our Glory. And I thought this was a fantastic match with the wrong ending. The crowd was eating this up so much. Arguably the most pumped that they were for the whole night was for the Acclaimed. And I mean, they're chanting the Seven Nation Army thing, oh, scissor me daddy. We want scissors chant. Jim Ross, I thought it was funny. He's like, this is reminiscent of years ago when they would say we want tables. It's like, dude, that happened multiple times this weekend, but okay. And there were so many moments during this match where the crowd was just like ready to burst over. My God, the Acclaimed is going to win these titles. And lots of near falls that were really good. Keith Lee accidentally pouncing Strickland accidentally kicking Lee. For a team that's the champions and everything, these two have been constantly hitting each other since before they became the champions. It's just a recurring theme with them that they can't get along with that, and then they still end up winning anyway. But Lee and Strickland eventually started just basically working heel, which, right decision, I think, because by the time you start getting all those near falls where they're breaking up the pins and the Acclaimed isn't winning, people are chanting bullshit, and they're just like so ready for this title change. But a powerbomb and a stomp combo keeps it on Swerve in Our Glory.
Yeah, this match was just blew everybody's expectations out of the water. I know the Acclaimed are good. I didn't realize they were that good. And they had the best match of their career. It was a real breakout match where the crowd is 100% behind them. They are fully babyface. They are one of, if not the most over tag team on the roster right now. And everyone loves the Scissor Me Daddy stuff. And maybe it got to a point where basically the opening part of the match, again, I saw someone describe this way on Twitter, but the opening part of the match is essentially, oh, we love the Scissor Me Daddy thing. I claimed they're a big mean tag team. And by the end of it, you're like, oh my God, this team has to win. I absolutely adore this team.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. It's just, it went from like being loved for being a meme to being loved because they are like really good baby faces in peril, and they work this match fantastically. And they had the thing with like Bowen selling his leg for ages. And
Oh, there was a great spot with that where I kept thinking, okay, that's going to be the end of the match. And then they did a thing with the missed kick from Swerve, where the reason why he ended up kicking Lee was because Bowen's kind of like collapsed under his leg. So it was like working in reverse. I thought that was a really good touch.
Yeah, he played out the leg injury really well. And yeah, Strickland and Lee decided to really play into the heel dynamic, and that worked well for the match, and it could work well for the team moving forward if that's the direction they want to take it. I think that the whole aspect of their team where Lee and Strickland hit each other quite a lot is due to the fact that they're two singles guys being a tag team, and that means that they're not as well versed in being a unit, even though they are really good, and that as individuals they're really good, and that's helped them become tag team champions. They still have miscommunication issues because of the fact that, frankly, by nature they're both singles guys, and I think that plays into their dynamic well as also because it means that could give them an excuse to eventually lose the titles, and then go into potentially a feud with each other due to the fact that one of them ends up costing the other the belt. So that was great. The whole Acclaimed, all the near falls, the crowd were just super into it. I think in hindsight, they'll look back on this and think they should have called an audible. And they should have just said, okay, we know what we planned. We're going to have the Acclaim win. Have the referee go into everyone's ear and just say, yeah, we're plans change and have the Acclaim get the victory. Because they could run this match back again at Grand Slam or some other show coming forward. I mean, eventually they have to have the Acclaimed win the titles, and that probably needs to happen by... I thought it was going to happen by next year. It should happen by the end of this year at this rate. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that the issue is that even if you do it at Grand Slam, is the reaction going to be the same as it was on this show, on this night, in front of this crowd?
Or are people going to look at it as, oh, well, you're doing this now because of that reaction, and we can kind of see it coming?
Yeah, so I think that there was, like, they kind of had this magic atmosphere that they might not capture again. I don't think it's the same thing as like
McIntyre.
Yeah, McIntyre, because it's not like they couldn't just have this show in front of they have like shows in front of hot crowds every single week pretty much for AEW. So I'm sure there will be a crowd that'll get behind the Acclaimed winning again. So it's not that big of a deal. It's not, they won't be in the UK ever again. And it's not like, it was the biggest match on the entire show. So there are a lot of factors that differentiate from that. So, but yeah, I think that in hindsight, Tony Khan will look at this and think, yeah, maybe I should have put the Acclaimed over on this show, but I don't think it's the end of the world, and they will be champions eventually. And if this night is any indication of hopefully what will be the trend going forward, they will be super over as tag team champions.
I hope they come back around to that, because this is the highlight of the pay-per-view for me. And it went downhill after this. Not in the sense of like, yeah, everything was shit afterward. I don't know if anybody would jump to that conclusion, but like it never reached this peak again, because the following match after that was the Interim Women's World Championship 4-way match. And it honestly just didn't live up to that. The hottest moment seemed to be when Baker and Hayter were finally kind of coming to odds, but there was a little spot there where like Shida was taken out and then pretty much immediately comes back. So there wasn't enough time for an investment in my mind to be like, oh no, Shida is taken out, and then, oh, look at that, she's coming back. It felt like it was like a minute and a half later. So I'm not quite sure what they were doing there. And then Toni Storm wins, and I'm like, okay. Like it's not something I can gush over, really. It was fine.
I thought this match was very good, even bordering on great. I think that everyone worked really hard. They had some really good chemistry and some moments with each other. I think that there weren't that many botches or anything that I could spot that were like poorly put together. I think that the crowd was super into Jamie Hayter. And again, it's one of those things where I think they should have called an audible and they should have made Jamie Hayter the women's champion, but they were going to make Toni Storm champion seemingly in the match if the match with Rosa would have happened. So I guess they decided to stick to their guns. They're going to make Toni Storm champion. Fair enough. They sowed the seeds for the Jamie Hayter, Britt Baker descent, and how that will essentially, this is where it kicks off and will gradually break down as the weeks and months go forward. So that's something to look forward to. I think that there was some cool moments where you had Shida and Toni Storm going at each other, and then Rebel tries to get involved, and so they just double headbutt her out of the ring. That was funny. They did the Shida spot where she was taken out on the ramp and having Jamie Hayter just like essentially run her up the ramp and drop her down there and Bake hitting the stomp. Again, yeah, maybe she came back probably a bit too soon to develop any kind of real investment, but then she was just beating the shit out of people with kendo sticks, so I could kind of look forward to that. They did really good stuff with Jamie Hayter early on, where she was basically double teaming Shida and Storm on her own and just taking them out and just showing how much stronger she is than pretty much anybody else there at the moment. So that all worked well. The Britt Baker stuff worked well. Having Toni Storm be able to take advantage of that miscommunication to get the victory herself worked well. Yeah, so I really don't have any negative things to say about this match. I think they all performed really well, and we're interested to see if they are able to build up any momentum, or whether this is just another, okay, it was a good match on pay-per-view, and they're just going to not care about things moving forward.
I got my reservations that that's probably going to be the case.
Oh yeah, I mean, they've given no indication to suggest otherwise, so I have no issue with anyone basically saying, oh yeah, it was good that Toni Storm win, even if I did enjoy the match. Like, again, your mileage may vary about how much you enjoyed the match, but like, okay, Toni Storm winning's a cool moment, and then you just say, yeah, but it's not going to mean anything. And I would totally be like, you'd totally be justified in having that opinion.
Especially because it doesn't really mean anything right now, since Rosa can easily just come back, beat Storm, and then the interim title doesn't count. And then that's kind of just like, all right, that was all for nothing. So it really doesn't matter until we get that second Storm and Rosa match, which then we go back to the idea of, well, why not just give Storm the title at Forbidden Door, We do that again. But whatever. That was better than the next segment, I gotta say, because this is the part where I was like, all right, yeah, fuck this then. And I got a feeling you're probably going to disagree with me on this, but...
Oh, wholeheartedly, yeah.
Jungle Boy gets jumped by Luchasaurus. Christian Cage hits a spear and a kill switch and beats him. There's 15 matches on this card. And this is rush squash for a gotcha, just for the sake of stalling it and being like, all right, well, the feud that's been months in the making, wait a little bit longer. If WWE did this, people would bitch. I don't like that excuse from AEW being like, but this time it's good storytelling. Like, to me, I think it's a stall.
No, it's not. That's bullshit. If WWE did this, I wouldn't complain. It makes total sense. If he does have Luchasaurus in his back pocket, then why wouldn't he have Luchasaurus attack him straight from the bell? What wouldn't make sense is if they have a match and then Luchasaurus turns on Jungle Boy, because that's just, why didn't you just have him attack him in the first place? It's this is the actual, real way it would happen if you are going to go this route. And there are reasons for this. I mean, it helps extend the story. It gives them a bit more animosity between not just Jungle Boy and Christian, but then Jungle Boy to Luchasaurus. So that builds up to more rivalries from going forward. It also accounts for the fact that Christian's clearly injured. He's clearly got a tricep injury. That's the reason why he had that giant thing covering his arm. He's clearly hurt. He clearly can't wrestle a long match at the moment. So they have to compensate for that. So they use this as a bit more of a storyline beat. And I think on a night where you had as many good and long matches as this night presented, I think it was fine to have a segment like this, which was more just purely story driven. You have Jungle Boy kick out the spear to show a little bit more of like fighting spirit before you have Christian hit the kill switch and get the victory. Yeah, I think that this was effective.
I think right there you said you would think it would be fine to have a segment like this. We got Hobbs and Starks.
Yeah, I don't mind.
And then I think again, on top of it, I think with a card that's kind of like, yeah, but the match is fun for the whatever for some of the other things. Then I go, all right, well, this was one match that I was actually really looking forward to seeing. So if I'm supposed to like the AEW show for having like two random guys against each other or whatever, and then one of the matches I was looking forward to the most ends up being a gotcha, then yeah, I end up looking at it and going, oh, fuck me, it's 15 matches and you couldn't have figured out another way to get something else better or something. And that's it's kind of putting the weight on the wrong end and not the thing that I would value scenario. So for my personal tastes, this was a major disappointment on my end. And it's hard for me to actually come back around to this. By the next 3 matches, I was just like, all right, my mood's kind of shot.
I do kind of understand that to a degree if you were like super looking forward to this match, but I also just don't know what to say in terms of Christian was basically incapable of having a good match with his injury. Like you would not have gotten a 15 to 20 minute match between these two. Christian is not in any shape to compete. Like, it's pretty clear based on the fact that he hasn't wrestled pretty much since, well, for months and months. So I don't know how long he's been like actually either hurt or out.
Then don't book it on the card.
Well, that means you have the opportunity to do the storyline beat, and now you have Jungle Boy versus Luchasaurus, a match that you can actually do and have a proper match with. So,
see, I would have
eventually they will get round to Christian versus Jungle Boy.
I would have liked that better than if they would have said that this match was happening on Dynamite. It ends up being this, and then they set up Jungle Boy versus Luchasaurus on this card. Then I would have been more forgiving of it. This just feels very like bait and switch.
I think that there is like a possibility for that, especially if like someone does pay primarily to watch this match. So I can understand it to a degree that people would prefer to see this one on Dynamite, but I always lean towards the arguments, both from WWE and this perspective, is both WWE and AEW perspective, that basically not every show is equal weight in. Obviously, this show is a bigger deal, but that's primarily for like the main event and some of the other title matches. Whereas you need to have stuff that's big on every single show, rather than just trying to cram every single thing onto this one show.
I would say I don't pay for these because of working for Bleacher Report. But if I were to have paid $50, this would have been one of the things that would have made me go, you know what, next time I'm not paying the $50. And I think that, everybody's got different tastes and everything like that. So obviously certain people will be like, hey, the ring ropes weren't this color, so I don't, whatever. Certain people weigh certain things differently, but this is one of those times where I'm like, I don't care about half the card, and then one of the matches that I do really care about, I don't get to see. Screw it. Then maybe the next time I don't trust that they're going to do it. And I don't know what the press conference stuff afterward is addressing this, if there's anything that, for that matter, too, for any of these things. I don't know what's happening on the scrum. Maybe something comes out that changes our opinion about something. I don't know. But I kind of look at it as like, if Christian wasn't ready to go, then why do the false advertisement? I don't think this is justified enough for the story for it. But to each their own. If you agree, you disagree, leave a comment. Tell us if you're more pro Callum's side, more my side. Dane saying Meltzer gave it 7 stars. I highly doubt he's going to do that, but you never know. I will say that put me in a sour enough mood that it took me a little while to get into the next match, which I was another one that was really looking forward to. Bryan Danielson against the Lionheart, Chris Jericho. I was really digging the Lionheart ring gear and stuff until I noticed that he did not have those tights fitting.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be completely fair. When I was talking about in the Worlds Collide thing about how many times Mandy Rose adjusted to her top, he was really adjusting his tights a lot during this match.
I literally tweeted out who's adjusted their ring gear more. Is it Mandy Rose with her top or Jericho with his pants? Same kind of thing. It wasn't fitting, so I don't know what was going on there, but they were turning my mood around and everything, and I was enjoying this match, but I wasn't loving it as much as I was hoping that I would. And then it just kind of had an ending. And I know what they're going for here. I know the story is Daniel Garcia was telling him not to cheat, and Jericho did a low blow. He got his Judas effect. I hate that finisher. Literally haven't changed my opinion about that since from the very start. So later on, Daniel Garcia's like, you shouldn't have cheated. And that's the story. But I saw a lot of people echoing the same opinion of, well, that was a flat ending. How'd you feel about that?
I think, again, it made sense. So I'm kind of okay with it. It's one of those things where, I can understand people taking a bit more of a flat ending to it, but if it makes sense, I'm kind of more likely to forgive it. the whole story was that Jericho was trying to out-wrestle Danielson and trying to prove to Daniel Garcia that he is the better wrestler out of the two of them, as well as the better sports entertainer. He had this nice little spot early on in the match where Bryan Danielson says, "Oh, you want to be entertained?" And then he just does like a hip gyration before he does some sort of like a leg attack, and so that was fun. And yeah, it was a good, solid wrestling match between two veterans that just could do this type of match in their sleep pretty much. A lot of submissions, lots of just like good counters into like the Psycho knee and the code breaker and all this other stuff, and had Bryan picking up the cattle mutilation as well as the belt lock and all this other, the triangle chokes and pretty much anything that he could muster. And yeah, it all ends up with Jericho getting into like him and Danielson being like pushed into the corner with Aubrey, and Jericho using the opportunity to just kick him below the belt and hit the Judas effect and get the victory. Yeah, it just plays into the story. I know, I can understand that it's kind of came out of nowhere, but I think that's kind of the point. It's like Jericho tried everything that he could to beat Danielson by fairly out wrestling him and just proving himself to be the better wrestler, and he couldn't do it. And so as soon as he does resort to those below the belt methods, he immediately gets the victory. And so that means that he gets to celebrate. He still gets to think in his own mind that he's the better wrestler, and he proved it by beating Danielson, and there's nothing else left for him to prove. And Garcia can just look at him and say, well, yeah, you cheated to win. You didn't actually out wrestle him. You just took advantage of an opportunity and got the win. So that can continue furthering the dissension between them, eventually leading to Garcia leaving and joining the Blackpool Combat Club and all this other stuff. But yeah, I think even though the ending was out of nowhere, I think that was kind of by design.
So then that took us into a match that I didn't care about to begin with. So that was another like kind of want to skip to the end kind of deal, which was House of Black against Miro, Darby Allin, and Sting. And I don't really have anything to say about it. We eventually got Malachi Black bleeding from like around his eye. That was another thing that I was just like, I kind of missed what happened there. Did you catch that? See what happened?
No, I mean, it was probably just Darby Allin hitting him with something, probably.
Yeah. Nothing like, I mean, like when Ty blasted Ruby in the nose, that was like, okay, that's what got her there. I couldn't figure out what was happening with this one. But I'm really even more confused about what happened at the very end of this, which was Sting was he basically gets the win for his team. He sprays mist in the eyes of Malachi Black, and Darby Allin's able to twist up Black for a pin. But by the time that Sting was spraying the mist, Miro was walking back up the ramp. And he was literally all the way up the ramp by the time that Allin was going for the pinfall. I didn't catch them acknowledging this at all. And maybe I just missed it or something, but this felt really weird to me.
Well, there's a lot to unpack with this match far beyond the match itself. The match itself was, again, a good trios match. Nothing like super spectacular, but like there's some good sequences. You had Sting get involved. The crowd liked Sting, and so that was a lot of fun. Miro was just going crazy on the attack, and they beat up Darby Allin for a while before he went flying around with all of his suicide dives and everything. But yeah, the ending where you have Sting spray his own mist in Black's face and Darby Allin rolling him up to get the victory. I guess the thing they're trying to tell with the Miro, because Miro didn't want to tag out at any point. He was just wanting to pretty much beat the House of Black on his own. So maybe their story, if they are telling story, is to essentially say that he was disappointed about the fact that he wasn't able to get the victory, and so he decided to just walk away. Like, okay, you ended up getting the victory without me involved, so I'm just gonna get out of here. Or if it's another kind of outside of that scenario, because there are rumors circulating about Miro's happiness in AEW. So if that's an indication of that, that's an issue. But then even beyond that, and I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I was looking over Twitter from people that were at the show live, which included like Brian Alvarez and Sean Ross Sapp.
The post-match stuff with Malachi?
Yeah, so essentially he essentially blew kisses to the crowd and kind of waved goodbye, had this big group hug with the rest of the House of Black. And that kind of gives an indication that they might have just made an agreement for him to work this show, and now he's going to be released.
And for anybody who's wondering if we have any information about it, I don't know anything else. I mean, I don't ever claim to be like, oh, I've got sources, because I fucking don't. But I haven't heard anything that specifies exactly what is going on with Malachi Black. He had tweeted out or posted something on Tumblr or whatever it was about like 2 years and like, was it all worth anything or whatever? And then some people are saying that that's about AEW, even though he hasn't been there for 2 years. So that's a little bit of a mix up. Some people were saying maybe this is a post about the pandemic. Maybe it's some other behind the scenes thing, like some family issue or whatever. But there is, of course, always the speculation that maybe he doesn't want to be in AEW and maybe he does want to come back to WWE, or he wants to just leave wrestling in general, or maybe there's something else going on. But it does seem like that kind of indicates a little bit more credibility towards the idea that something is going on with Malachi Black. And then if the Miro thing is true too, if he's just like, all right, that's pretty much the end of the match, I'm fucking leaving, and that's not a great sign. At least there's no story that I'm catching here. Either they're doing some kind of really subtle storytelling that's even not like clicking in my brain, or maybe there's some kind of an issue. I don't know. But the Miro thing, I was just like, why is this guy all the way up at the top of the stage already? And I was expecting them to say something like, Miro is mad about whatever, so look at them, he's already booking and leaving or whatever. And to the best of my acknowledgement, they didn't say anything about it at all. So maybe they get some kind of thing where they talk about it on Dynamite. Maybe they completely ignore it and we weren't supposed to notice that. But that was more interesting to me than anything that happened during the match itself. Is just this post-match Miro and Malachi stuff. And I'm way more interested in hearing what we get out of that than, you know, any kind of follow-up with House of Black or Allin and Sting. Dane's suggesting Aleister Black's the new leader of the Judgment Day. I don't know if that's going to happen, at the very least. 3 votes in the chat from Josh saying about, I put up a poll wondering if people are pro con or indifferent to the Jungle Boy thing. It looks like people are more con, but I can't see the poll right now. For some reason, YouTube is kind of glitching out for me. It doesn't literally acknowledge that I've got a poll going on at all. So yay for YouTube. If that changes, let me know, everybody. We got the Daniel Garcia thing. Jericho Appreciation Society is not going to be supporting him against Wheeler Yuta. You think there's any specific road that they're heading with that?
I think they'll have Garcia beat Yuta.
You think he will?
Yeah, I think he'll win.
I'd be down for it. I wouldn't be opposed to that whatsoever. Let's see. Was that the main event then next? Yes, it was. The AEW World Championship match. Moxley, oddly enough, not the first person to bleed. And if he did bleed, I couldn't tell because Punk was bleeding so much that it ended up basically kind of spilling all over onto Moxley. I was surprised about that.
Yeah, I mean, you typically would involve, especially in a big main event pay-per-view match, for Moxley to bleed significantly. But yeah, essentially they decided to go with the Punk thing because it was in Chicago. They're playing up the babyface thing. The babyface is usually the one that would be the one that bleeds and has to fight through that adversity. So it makes sense why they went in that route.
No interference from the coffee shop guy. No interference from the teacher of the year. None of those people. Punk just has to fight it out on his own. Of course, suspension of disbelief. Everybody cheering for him means the injury doesn't matter anymore. It's wrestling. Whatever. And with 2 GTSs, Punk gets the win. Which, match was good. Not going to be my match of the year, but I can see why people would have enjoyed it. Like a whole lot more than me. Not saying it's bad by any means. Just, it's not on my list.
Yeah, it was a very physical match. Again, it's not going to be in my match of the year candidate either, but yeah, very physical match. Like, they told a good story. I think they tried to play up the fact that the crowd was super anti-Moxley, where realistically the crowd actually wasn't that anti-Moxley, because everyone kind of just really likes John Moxley in general. So
There was definitely a let's go Moxley CM Punk back and forth.
Yeah. And they kind of tried to lean into the idea that, oh, the chants for CM Punk are a lot louder than the drowning out the Moxley stuff, where realistically it was kind of more 50-50 than they'd want to really admit. But they told the story of Punk fighting from beneath. Again, I kind of buy into the idea that he wasn't ever quote unquote injured. He just had to get to understand how it is to now work on that injured foot. And he went through it in this match. Realistically, you said he won after 2 GTSs. He won after 3 because he hit a GTS in the first minute of this match, pretty much. So,
I mean, 2 at the end. He had the one Moxley falls on top of him, picks him up, gets him at the second one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know, but that was the third one. That was the second and third ones. So, but yeah, so they tried to tease the idea of Punk getting an early win to try and almost immediately counteract the Moxley thing. He goes on the attack. Moxley pretty much dominates the vast majority of the match, as you would expect, because Punk is still coming back. Wouldn't be ring rusty beyond just having to deal with this injury. But he fights through the pain, gets the victory, hits the 2 GTSs, gets the win. It makes sense in the sense that he has that home crowd momentum behind him, and that can drive someone into achieving extraordinary things. So I'm totally cool with him now being champion and actually being able to have somewhat of a run with the title now that he's healthy again, and at least we know what direction that is going, at least in the short term.
Well, then after the match, the Joker pops up on the screen after this audio plays of Tony Khan saying, "You don't care about the fans, but I do. So here's your offer. Show up at AEW All Out, and basically I'll pay a shit ton of money, and we'll, give you a bunch of what you're asking for." And the Joker takes off his mask, and it's MJF, who comes out and taunts that he's going to win the title, and then it ends. I went from, okay, cool, I'm totally down for MJF winning the title, to it's over. Womp womp. I was disappointed in that.
Well, you just assumed he was just going to win the title there and then.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Give me a Money in the Bank cash in. I've always thought that should be the case with the chip. It should be more Money in the Bank style. And then for it to just be like, it's MJF. We'll figure out more on Dynamite. I know it's supposed to be the hook. But then again, I kind of feel like maybe the hook would have just been the Joker anyway, and that they didn't need to do the MJF reveal for that. And they could have been a smarter way to get it. Because now I'm like, all right, well, now we know it's MJF. But then it's just, okay, well, I'm going to go for the title. Well, we know that already. So what really is the hook other than the fact that I want to hear MJF speak again?
The hook is that you now have to pay to see this match another show, because that's how smart business people operate.
I'm talking about for Dynamite.
Oh, Dynamite, yeah. MJF just comes back and explains why he's been gone, what changed, what his motivations are, why he's part of this group with Stokely Hathaway. There's a lot for him to explain and a lot of things for him to discuss. So realistically, just the thought of MJF talking and explaining his actions is the hook to bring you into Dynamite. And realistically, if that's not enough, then I don't really know what there's nothing that can really convince you to watch that show. So either you want to watch it because you want to see what he has to say, or you don't want to watch it, and realistically, you probably don't want to watch Dynamite for any reason.
The way I look at it is I think that it would have been better if the Joker wouldn't have been revealed here, and it would have been more of we can figure out who the Joker is on Dynamite. I think that would have been a little bit stronger. But I've said a million times, even before when we got to All In, that MJF has been one of my favorite guys. So yeah, I was just a little bit disappointed that he didn't just win the title, because I'm just like, fuck it. I don't want to really see the CM Punk win. I want to just go straight to MJF. But now, even more so than that, I'm interested in what happened at the media scrum. I didn't check this out yet, but I'm seeing from multiple different things here. Punk going off on the Young Bucks and Paige and Colt Cabana, and I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen it yet. We got a little message here from Rob saying a quote about this whole thing. Let me read what this is. Why I'm a grown-ass adult man, I decide to be friends with somebody is nobody else's fucking business but my friends. If I fall backwards, will catch me. Scott Colton. That's his real name, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt never would have. My problem was I wanted to bring a guy with me to the top that didn't want to see me at the top. You can call it jealousy, you can call it envy, whatever the fuck it is. My relationship with Scott Colton ended long before I paid all of his bills. I have every receipt, I have every invoice, I have every email. I have an email where he says I agree to go our separate ways, I'm assuming. I will get out on my own lawyer. You do not have to pay anymore. That's an email I have. The only reason the public did not see it is because when I finally had to countersue him through discovery, we discovered he shared a bank account with his mother. That's a fact. Why is that being brought up? As soon as we discovered that fact, we subpoenaed old Marsha. He sent out the email, oh, can we please drop all this? It's 2022. I haven't been friends with this guy since at least 2014, late 2013.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. I'm just checking out some transcripts from that's on the Wrestle Talk website. So he says things here about EVPs. So he says essentially it's the idea that when regarding Colt Cabana, he says people who call themselves EVPs who should have known better about the whole situation. Sort of about Adam Page saying empty-headed dumb fuck like Adam Page to go on television and go into business for himself. He says things like elaborating on the EVP comment. It says, because if you're an EVP, you don't try and middle your top baby face, try to get your niche audience on the internet to hate him or something, make up a bullshit rumor. Really pisses me off. Stepping on your own dick, trying to fucking make money, sell tickets, fill arenas, and these stupid guys think they're in Reseda. Don't know what that Reseda thing is, but that's that might just be another reference to me. Says here, our locker room, for all the wisdom and brilliance it has, isn't worth shit when you have an empty-headed idiot who's never done anything in the business do public interviews and say, I don't really take advice. Who the fuck do you think you are? That's stupid. Fucking go fuck yourself. That's how I feel about it. I dare you to fucking say that to Terry Funk's face. I don't need to listen to you, Mr. Funk. I know what I'm doing. Fucking grow up. And that's apparently in reference to Adam Page. About MJF. I'm tired of wrestling these pricks. I'm tired of wrestling these kids who think they know everything, but I'm not the boss. I think Max is a supremely talented individual, and this goes for anyone else in the locker room who doesn't want to be here. The grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. Max likes to shit where he eats instead of watering the grass, so we'll have to see how that goes. And then a final thing on Colt Cabana. He says, the reason I'm never defending myself is because when you do, you look defensive. I'm very, very sad today that I had to get up here and say his name because he doesn't fucking deserve it and talk about it. But facts are facts, you know. Name two people that have made the most money off of the name CM Punk. He says he looks at Tony Khan and he says, I don't think you're there yet. The first one is Vince McMahon and the second one is Scott Colton.
Ooh.
And to close, he said, I hope you have a good night and be more responsible about news you get from certain people. And please remember, we're human beings.
Well, this is already going to be a news story. So if his idea is to not look like an ass.
Well, it's one of those things like that strikes me as a guy who is so fucking frustrated with all of this stuff that's come out in the news recently. And again, I'm not saying that he's right or the media are right or anything like that, but that's a guy who basically wants to now just get his side of the story out there, and in a way that the guy who doesn't want to be in a situation where he has to get his side of the story out there, and he's just pissed off and he's angry and he clearly doesn't. I think it's not a case of him wanting to leave AEW. He just doesn't like a lot of the people in AEW. I think he likes Tony Khan. I think he likes, obviously, some of the people he works with, FTR, all this other stuff. But he clearly has issues with the EVPs. He clearly has an issue with Hangman Page. He clearly doesn't want to talk about Colt Cabana. So yeah, it's just a bit of a difficult situation. And he clearly, I think that stuff about MJF, I'm sure some of it is worked to a degree, but I think there is that genuine animosity there as well. So we'll see how it goes. But clearly he has a lot of bugbears at the moment that are just coming to the forefront. But they have made him the world champion again, so they clearly don't have any reservations about him continuing to fulfill his obligations.
I am one of those people that I think that most situations are different shades of gray. I hate how so many people in this world these days in particular are very much like, nope, I back whatever, that's the end of it, and it can't be anything else, and I'm not going to change my mind. I could understand a scenario. Now, of course, I don't know anything about what happens behind the scenes that we haven't been confirmed about or anything like that, so that's another thing. Take it with a grain of salt, blah, 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 all that bullshit. But I could see some things about Punk saying things where it's like, look, people don't want to say it, but here's the truth that I could agree with. And then there's some other things where I'm like, do you really think that it's a good idea to put the title back on this guy? You know? Kind of seems a little problematic in some ways, and I don't know if it's going to be one of those decisions where we look back and we go, it all worked out, and that ended up being just like a hiccup, or if this ends up being where there's smoke, there's fire. But
yeah, well, just to round that up, SRS is already tweeting that there's already big heat on CM Punk for the comments he's made on the post scrum. So
as there should be. Realistically, there should be, because that's another thing too, is I fully understand when a celebrity reaches a point where they're like, look, I'm tired of talking about this and I'm just going to kind of lash out. Especially because it's like, you ever see those videos of like somebody who quote unquote attacks the mob of paparazzi that's like hounding them, and then people act like the celebrity is the problem, and it's like, no, they're hounded 24/7. They can't step outside and have a meal without the people like running up to them and saying bullshit and taking their picture and whatever. I get when people can snap with that, but then I also kind of go like, we're in a culture where people can tweet things out immediately, and they can do a podcast, or they can do, you know, a quick video on TikTok or whatever it might be, to like air their thoughts about something and keep it from blowing up a little bit. And when you keep things hidden and, you know, you bottle it all up and you bottle it up, and then eventually you just have to explode, it comes off worse than if you would have just said some of the stuff a little bit ahead of time. And maybe that's the better course of handling some of these things, is to not be so goddamn closed off when doing this like company speak stuff of, well, you know, corporate, we got to talk about it this way and we have to say everything's fine. Like, you can say this person doesn't like that person or something, or yeah, we're having some problems between Cabana and Punk, instead of nope, everybody's perfectly fine. And then people a day or two later are like, fuck that guy. And you're like, God damn it. You just completely negated my everything's okay speech. And then of course there's the people that are going, it's all work. You know, there's going to be those people.
Yeah, that's just just to wait and see how all this pans out. It's clearly there's a lot of there's a lot of tension and a lot of difficulties by anybody's measure. I mean, CM Punk has pretty much just showcased it as openly as you possibly can, how certain people and certain issues rub him the wrong way. So yeah, we'll see how long it takes for these to resolve themselves, as they ever end up doing. But I think for the meantime, it's probably worthwhile to have him as champion, even if it is even if he's not in the best place right now, or it's not as all like smelling of roses like it was when he first came back. Maybe this actual this controversy adds a bit more spice to his next reign and his upcoming reign and the feud with MJF, rather than it being just a typical heel versus babyface thing.
I wish we could be a fly on the wall to figure out who's backing who, and just like get to know. You know, is it? You would seem. It would seem like it would be. If he's talking about like the Young Bucks and the EVPs and whatever, seems like probably Omega, Page, the Bucks, you know, the Elite in All Elite Wrestling, probably against the Punk side. The Punk side probably more of a Tony Khan thing, especially because we know that this originally All Out, All In and everything that leads to AEW, it wasn't supposed to be all Elite Wrestling. Remember, it was supposed to be World's Best Wrestling with CM Punk. So you got to assume Tony Khan's probably, he's the one calling the shots at the end. He's probably the one that's making the case pro Punk. But I am kind of curious if this means that there are people like Bryan Danielson maybe on his side. Is somebody like Chris Jericho more on Punk's side or more on the Elite side? Or, where do people fall in this split? And I'm sure there's also people that are like, look, I'm not on either side. I'm just here to do my job. But I want to know if there's a shoot Survivor Series, like a team versus team working its way. I want to know who's on which team and what we're going to call Punk's team to go against the Elite. I don't know. But we might look back on this as being one of those events where that media call might be more important than anything that happened at All Out even. And we might get people leaving the company. We might get people talking more about some other kind of things. We might get some really big news coming out of this. So I'm far more interested in that than to see what Punk actually does going forward with like a kayfabe title reign. I'll say that.
Yeah, as I say, it's always, especially considering what we both look into in terms of just the other side of wrestling beyond what we see on screen every single week. It's oftentimes the case is the stuff that's outside of that TV product is the more exciting and the more dramatic stuff than anything they can actually put on screen. so that seems to be the case moving forward. So look forward to some interesting hot tags, I imagine, going forward.
Yeah. Malachi Black, Miro, Page, and all that. Who knows what we're in store for over these next few days, but that is going to be one of the next episodes of Smack Talk that we've got coming your way. Still haven't quite settled 100% on what the main event is that's coming up next. Still leaning towards the idea of maybe just doing fantasy booking the Ultimate NXT UK pay-per-view card. That could be kind of fun and just kind of wrap up the way that NXT UK has officially ended. But maybe we do something else. Maybe some other news happens in the meantime. Maybe we end up coming back around to this story as being just, look, the biggest thing happens and we're just going to do one of those like extenuated hot tag editions of like going over or something. I don't know. We'll see. We got a couple days before that happens, so stay tuned for that. Make sure that you are subscribed to this channel and ring that little notification bell to know when we go live for certain things or when things get posted up on the site. If you want to get access to the Darkcasts that are out there, remember, you got the Patreon and you got the channel membership over on the little join button. Just click on that. And this is done for the pay-per-view point content for this week. These 6 episodes of this. So we're over with that. That's a good thing. I could use a little bit of a break from some pay-per-views. But the next event that is definitely heading our way is Extreme Rules, which I had thought about possibly getting tickets for, but then the next thing I knew, the tickets were way too much money and everything. So even though that's in Philly, I guess that's not happening. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up getting a ticket down the line and just going. Highly doubt it, though. That is the beginning of October. And then Full Gear, we know when that is going to be now at this point, is November 19th. So that's the next AEW event, but we've got some WWE stuff in the meantime as well. The Grand Slam episode is what week? It's not this next week coming up. It's the week after that or something, I think, right?
To double check.
It's coming up soon, but I'm blanking on exactly.
It'll be October at some point, I think. Maybe let's see. It will be September 21st.
21st. Okay, so we got 2 weeks or so from that.
Yeah, and then the Rampage one as well. So if they decide to extend it as 2 of them, so a few weeks away.
All right, well, that is some stuff to look forward to, and then I think we've got actually a little bit of some blank stuff after that too. Let me bring up my my calendar right now, because right now, yeah, we got 3 blank weeks until we get into Crown Jewel predictions for the beginning of that. So if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see us do, let us know, and we will factor that in, try to get around to that. If we are not necessarily heading in that direction and you really want us to go like, oh man, the next one I want you to do is this, and I really, really want it, making sure that you do that pick your poison option, because you could always just be like, look, I'm directly funding it, screw you guys, you're watching this pay-per-view for fan outs table or something along those lines. And then, I'll play around with whatever we get to play around with whenever those toys pop out of the chest. I don't know what kind of weird analogy I'm going with here. For some reason, Toy Story popped in my mind, I guess. In any fashion, All Out, that's what it is. Let us know what your favorite of the 3 pay-per-views was for this whole weekend. I gotta say, probably overall, just in a tighter package, probably Worlds Collide for me. What about you?
Oh, All Out was the best one, by considerable margin.
Well, let us know in the comments below what you thought. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite? What's the one in the middle? Rank them. If you didn't see them all, rank them anyway. I don't know. And then if you want to follow what else we got going on, of course, there's smarkoutmoment.com. You'll find some other things that are happening there. Go to fanboysanonymous.com to check out everything under the geek culture spectrum that I decided to post. I got a feeling I'm probably going to be doing at least 1, if not 2 movie things over the next 2 weeks or so. I'm going to try, actually, about like a week from now, I'm going to try to maybe knock out some content on there. So stay tuned for that. Of course, if we want to support that even more, Patreon for that. Subscribe and like and follow and do all that good stuff for Fanboys Anonymous, just the same as you would do for for Smark Out Moment. And if you go to amangotree.com, you'll see other links for everything there, including my personal social media accounts at Toni Mango. You can also see what I do on eWrestling News and Bleacher Report through those links. I got another article I got to write up about the best and the worst booking decisions of All Out, so you're going to see more complaints to me about the Jungle Boy thing and the setup for instance, the Ricky Starks thing. I wasn't a big fan of that, and I think that Swerve in Our Glory shouldn't have won, so that's going to be on my worst. But you'll see some more positives, the best of it should have been Tony Storm, so that makes sense. Or I like the idea that they did the Joker thing a little bit. So read that tomorrow. It'll be up at 8 in the morning. And if you want to follow what Callum's up to, then you should know where to go. But if you don't, where should they go, Callum?
Find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out the power rankings over on the Smart Comment website, and you can also check out the Fantasy League there as well. I'm trying to rush it because it's already taken too long. This is podcast.
We have, I don't know how many, 3 hours worth of this over the course of 2 hours today, an hour and a half, and then whatever. But yes, lots of pay-per-view content. Hopefully you enjoyed it this weekend, everybody, and hopefully I hope that you enjoy this next stuff coming up soon. But until then, take a little bit of a break, but we'll see you then, everybody. For now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.